Legal funding freeze continues to impact everyday Americans nationwide and affect climate change in particular. Democrats are in the minority, but they're using what levers they have at their disposal to fight back. One key lever is mobilizing everyday Americans like you to speak out and share the stories of how you and your communities are being impacted by having this critical funding cut and protect future budget funding. Democrats in Congress can use these real-world examples, and later in the call, we'll talk about shared resources to keep fighting back. We wanted to start the call by thanking all of our co-sponsors who've helped to make this conversation possible. League of Conservation Voters, CHISPA, Connecticut League of Conservation Voters, Climate Action Campaign, Environment Defense Fund Action, Next Gen America, Climate Power, Sierra Club Pennsylvania Chapter, Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, Green Latinos, Elders Climate Action, Change the Chamber, Society of Latinx Nurses, Catholics Vote Common Good, Upper West Side Action Group, Upper East Side for Change, Combined Defense Project, the Movement Infrastructure Project, Friends of the Earth, Indivisible 49, and Evergreen Action. I'll now pass it to David Shadburn with the League of Conservation Voters to give you more context on the funding freeze.
Thank you so much, Courtney, and hello, everyone. My name is David Shadburn. I'm a senior government affairs advocate at the League of Conservation Voters based in Washington, D.C. I use he, him pronouns. We are so excited to have House Appropriations Committee ranking member Rosa DeLauro here with us tonight. There are so many major fights happening right now. As we speak, House Republicans are working to advance a budget resolution that cuts clean energy investments that are creating jobs and lowering household energy costs, not to mention fighting the climate crisis. What's more, of course, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are stealing taxpayer dollars through this unconstitutional DOGE funding freeze, funds that help the people in our society who need it the most for things like Medicaid and SNAP and low-income home energy assistance and disaster unemployment assistance for people whose livelihoods are destroyed by climate-fueled disasters like wildfires and hurricanes, and so much more. And they are doing all of this, just so they can cut taxes for the wealthiest in our society and give more handouts to polluters. Government funding is going to run out on Friday, March 14th. And this is a huge moment for all of us as we work to hold Republicans accountable for cutting benefits and clean energy investments that lower household costs and help our communities. That is why we are so thrilled to have Congresswoman DeLauro here with us today to talk through how to fight back, and especially on this unconstitutional funding freeze through her role with the Appropriations Committee. Just a brief bit of programming first. I'm going to introduce the Congresswoman. She'll speak. We're going to take some questions and answers from folks who submitted questions ahead of time, including, hopefully, if we have time, some from the question and answer box on your Zoom screen. And then I'm going to turn it back to Courtney Foley, the Climate Action Campaign, to talk about how you can get involved. So by way of introduction, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro represents Connecticut's 3rd Congressional District and has fought for working people her entire career. Prior to being elected to Congress in 1991, she was the first executive director of Emily's List and was chief of staff to Senator Chris Dodd. She is a founding member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and has led Democrats on the Appropriations Committee since 2021. She received a perfect 100% on the League of Conservation Voters 2023 National Environmental Scorecard. She is a campaigner at heart and is always asking about this movement. So I know how thrilled she is to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for being with us tonight and for being a climate champion. Congresswoman DeLauro, let me turn it over to you.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much for such a generous introduction. And I am delighted and happy to be a 100%er here. This is, I really do believe in what you all do. And I was just so impressed with the list of sponsoring organizations, et cetera. What an incredibly robust network. And that's what we need today. We need networks around the country who are really in touch with people and letting them know what is really happening. So Courtney, to you, David, and all of you, I'm so grateful to be joining you. And I want to say a thank you to you, not only for joining tonight's meeting, but for your work in protecting our environment, preserving our natural lands, fighting against climate change, for helping myself and all House Democrats to make our homes, our communities, our outdoor spaces healthier and safer for America's families. You know, an unchecked billionaire, Elon Musk, is taking a sledgehammer to the government. indiscriminately dismantling and destroying the agencies and programs that help the American people. Our investments in everything from clean water to food safety, green energy, the stewardship of our protected lands are at grave risk. In short, elections have consequences. And that is clear to you, and it's clear to me. That is being made clear to the American people, and we need to make it clear to the American people. I believe they are already outraged about the drastic cuts that are being proposed, but we need to help them make their voices heard. We need to amplify the voices that need to get heard. If they see what is happening now with the funding freezes, the shutting down of agencies, the occupation and plundering of our government by Musk and Doge, the American people should understand that this was always where Musk wanted to go. This is what they told us they would do in Project 2025. For every time the president disavowed Project 2025 on the campaign trail, he and his unchecked billionaires have taken 2 steps to implement that manifesto during their first month in office. Most Americans found their Project 2025 agenda to be repulsive. But now that it is here, we have to fight it. We have to protect the investments that help to keep our communities and our families healthy, safe, educated, and secure. I could spend my entire time on this call listing the agencies, programs, and services that have seen their funding frozen, or the investments that are at risk of being stolen from America's families and from businesses. There is not a sector that is untouched. But let's keep it in terms of what individuals, families, and communities will feel directly. The Green and Resilient Retrofit Program at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, a program that lowers costs, makes homes more efficient and resilient to natural disaster, has been frozen since January 29th, despite court orders to release the funds. They haven't released the money yet. Almost $600 million of these critical investments have been awarded nationwide, primarily to states like Texas, Ohio, Missouri. Over $20 million of these investments were promised to the residents of my district, including to the people living in what's called the Towers at Tower Lane, which is a 328-unit apartment complex, 3/4 of which are reserved for low-income residents. These are promised investments for upgrades that will include modernizing heating and cooling systems, improving insulation, installing energy-efficient windows, and implementing renewable energy solutions. Elon Musk and President Trump are stealing these funds that were meant to raise the quality of housing for the people who live at the towers in my district. Likewise, the Home Energy Rebates Program is frozen. This program provided funding to every state in the nation to put money directly back into the hands of American households. Elon Musk's actions to steal these funds are going to directly lead to higher energy bills, which means less money in people's pocketbooks. The Weatherization Assistance Program, which helps lower-income households improve their energy efficiency, was also frozen. Those households would now have to spend an average of $372 more every year. But I'm not just focused on nationwide statistics. And if anybody from the North Carolina Legal Conservation Voters is here, I'm talking about you. The work done by programs like Power Up NC to uplift the human consequences of these investments is crucial to our campaign. I watched the videos. I was moved by the stories of Crystal Barnes and Vanessa Vincent that you have uplifted. Amazing women are both single moms on low and fixed incomes. They're cancer survivors, like I am a cancer survivor. The Weather Resistance Program helped both of them improve the quality of air in their homes, realize energy savings that not only reduce their monthly cost of living, but cut Crystal's energy bills in half. The stories are powerful, and that's what we need to do. We need to tell the stories. because Elon Musk's executive orders are stealing these funds from Crystal's and Vanessa's across our country. The list could go on forever, and I am sad to say that you can expect to see continuous attacks on the clean energy and conservation investments secured in the milestone legislative achievements of the last few years, such as the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. The administration has shown us that they believe that they have the absolute power to determine spending and that they can choose to simply not fund programs and the services that Congress has appropriated money for, money that was intended to go to these areas. But they could not be farther from the truth. The Constitution empowers the Congress, not the president, with the power of the purse. When the president signs an appropriations bill, it becomes law. It is not a directive of Congress. It is a law, the law of the land, just like any other bill. And the White House is responsible for seeing that provisions of the law are carried out. No, we have the Constitution on our side. The president is not a king who can pick and choose which laws to enforce, but we are seeing with the mountain of executive orders that the president is dead set on doing just that. We are fighting on every front, including in the courts. The courts are our friends these days, my friend. They really are. Because we are in the minority, House Democrats are not able to bring a legal challenge on behalf of the House of Representatives to challenge these unlawful orders and actions. But we are arming those who do have standing with the information that they need to be successful. And we are working directly with state attorneys general and impacted groups and individuals across the country to bring these lawsuits. And we are arming them with as much information as possible. We will also be filing amicus briefs at the appropriate juncture in select cases. We will make sure the courts hear from congressional Democrats, and we will make sure they are hearing how these unlawful actions affect the people that we all are chosen to represent. We've seen some early successes. Well over a dozen judges have taken steps to rein in Trump, Musk, the Doge, with temporary restraining orders and other measures. More emergency orders are expected soon. Look, of course, we cannot and we will not just stand by while this is handled by the judicial branch. Also, the administration has shown they do not think they have to follow court orders. And so we are fighting on every front, and that includes in the court of public opinion, which really is so critically important. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, public sentiment is everything. If you have it, you can win, and if you don't have it, you're not likely to win. And we are all sharing information far and wide. Just last week, what I'm doing with the Appropriations Committee, we released 7 fact sheets on the Department of Energy programs that have been frozen and the state-by-state impacts. What is most critical, impactful, is that what is happening in terms of human consequences, how the administration's action affect families sitting around that kitchen table. There are a lot of constitutional issues, my friends, and they're important to be mentioned. But what we need to do is to pivot for the human consequences that are occurring on people, their lives, their families, etc. That's where the power and the strength is. If you listen to Crystal and Vanessa, that is where the strength of our arguments are. We have to give the how and the why of the programs and the services that are being cut. So get the stories and the testimonials out there. Tell the media, tell your members of Congress what is happening. The programs that are shutting down because their grants are frozen. The projects in your communities that are paused indefinitely. Even if you are not in court, the stories are important. The stories will be. Look, well, I don't want to say it's a bleak picture out there, but it is a tough picture out there. We have to face the reality of what they are doing with day after day after day. But it is important that we have an understanding of the landscape that we are in. I will be an optimist. We have leverage. We are putting up the fight. Less than a month from now, March 14th, is our deadline for funding the government. After that, without a new funding bill in place, the government shuts down. Let me tell you this. There's Republicans who control the House, the Senate, and the White House. They have the responsibility. They will make the decision as to whether or not our government shuts down. We are at the negotiating table, and please understand, if you're reading anything that's coming from Republicans and say that Democrats are not responding and that we are not at the table, that's, I won't say what, it's horse, you know what. It really is. We are there. We're making offers going back and forth, and we're dealing with the numbers, but we also want to make sure that when the dollars are appropriated, that the law will be followed and that those dollars will go to where they were intended to go for the services that the public needs, that the American people need. So that is, we're going back and forth, and we're not there yet on reaching a top line and or the assurances we need to be able to go forward. You know, it's the government funding bills. They need the support of Republicans and Democrats, House and the Senate. And they're always Republicans who will refuse to vote for any spending bill, requiring even more Democrats to support their bills. We do have leverage, my friends. We have, it's 217 to 215 votes in the House. So in order to pass what they want to do, they need our votes to go forward. We, as I said, we're having conversations with Chairman Cole in the House, Chair Collins, and Vice Chair Murray in the Senate. We are still working on being able to get this done. As I said, we are asking for these concrete demands because we have to end the lawlessness and we have to restrain Musk and Doge. So we are going to continue to react and to respond accordingly. And we have to put pressure on our institutions to do the same. We can't do it alone. Let me just speak very, very plainly to you. You all get it. You've been at this for a long time. You know what it is to organize, to galvanize, to mobilize, to get all this done. You're the eyes and the ears on the ground. You'll see it first. You'll see what grants and funds that are expected that are not going to be showing up. So, and I'm grateful for all the things that you've done already to tell the country about the human consequences of these actions. You know, your op-eds, the media hits, your online posts, Instagram reels, TikTok. You know, we've been here before, friends. We really have. And we have overcome obstacles, the obstacles of a Trump administration to secure the critical funding increases and to fight poison pill writers when Democrats were in the minority in 2017, 2018, and 2019. I want to say a thank you, you know, on this call for all of your hard work, your persistence, and for not backing down, not giving up when things get difficult or they get uncomfortable. But I will also say this, we cannot get tired and we cannot take no for an answer. We just have to keep going. We will be successful if we express the risks and the harms of the Republican agenda and actions in human terms. What are the human costs? How does this affect the day-to-day lives of the middle class and working people? How does it affect the cost of living? That must be our North Star. It's about the cost of living and these cuts that are being made so that we can provide the tax cuts for these unchecked billionaires. That is the message that we need to get across. Please Tell me what you are thinking, what you are feeling. Let me know what you are doing, what you're working on, and what questions you may have for me. Thank you for allowing me to be with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. It is, I'll speak for myself, it's extremely inspiring just to hear you talk and talk about this fight. We are so lucky to have you fighting tirelessly for us in these many myriad and closely connected fights. Let me start with some questions that we had submitted ahead of time. What tools do Democrats have to end the funding freeze and get this money out the door and programs back on their feet?
Great question. Look, let's be real. I'm not going to mislead you. Last November's election gave almost all the political power, to Trump, Musk, Republican majorities in both chambers. And so I talk about the unchecked billionaires who bankroll them. But look, we do have the courts. As I said in my remarks, the courts are our friends in going forward. Judges have ruled at the district court level nearly unanimously that the president and political appointees can't unilaterally steal promised investments, which is critically important. As I mentioned to you, we can't sue. We are in the minority, but we are dealing with ways in which we are supporting groups doing that, and we are going to be filing the amicus briefs. What we are going to use most of all is the most important tool that we have, the most powerful resource that we have. And that's to all of you on this call. My colleagues have been doing teletown halls all over the country, in this last week. One of my colleagues tonight did 8, and being in the district. And what are those about? I've done them, and I'm going to continue to do them. We all are. I went on with our Attorney General, to talk about some of the legal things. I'm going to do one either Wednesday or Thursday night on the education cuts. Everyone is doing them and what it means, translating what that means. So we have to gather the information about the cuts and what they mean. We have to translate that in terms of the consequences, and we have to amplify the voices, which is what we're going to do. We wanted people to know about illegal actions by amplifying your stories. Musk fires 130 employees at the Bonneville Power Administration. He's not downsizing government. He is firing linemen and women who keep electricity, safe and reliable to your homes. That's what we do. He freezes the IRA of funding. What happens to people like Crystal and Vanessa, and to get their stories out there? So all of these, this is an inside and an outside game. We need to do what we can do. And, look, we are in the minority. It's not stopped us in the past. It's not going to stop us now, but we are in the minority. So we need to do what we are aiming for internally, but we need the outside, the advocacy voices like all of you and all the many organizations that are attached to this effort. And what they need to do, they need to be on the phone. They need to shut down the offices and calls, and mostly to our Republican colleagues. I have this phrase I use all the time: nothing focuses the mind like a death sentence. You call and you call and you let them know that people can come to Washington. That's wonderful. But it's about going to the district offices. It's about calling the district's office, about being in front of those offices and let those members know that they have a price to pay if they are not responding to the people in their community. So it's time consuming, but you all know how to do it, and we can get that done. Those are some of the tools that we have, and whatever others. Now we're doing videos, to the camera. We're people are on Instagram. I've even gone on TikTok, and my office got me on TikTok, so that we're just out there with, every step of the way. And like we sent out, I don't know if it went out today or going out today. We have listed they fired nearly 6,000 veterans. That information has gone out to people and where that's happening. We sent information out about all the farm cuts, and we sent so that they have district by district information of how many, what that's going to mean to a specific the difference when they cut the REAP program and the EQIP program and all of that. Those are the kinds of tools that we are using.
Thank you so much for that. And if you haven't seen the TikTok of the ranking Rizzler, Rosa DeLauro, I highly recommend. It's an excellent watch.
I mean, I'll tell you this because you will all appreciate it. You're all, I'm looking at a generation of folks out there who know all about this stuff. When my office came to me and they said, would you want to do something like that? I said, yeah, first get me a glossary so I know what the hell these words mean. So anyway, it was fun.
All right, I want to combine two questions that we've received from folks that I think are very similar frame here. One is, you've talked about this for a moment, but what did you see as some of the most effective messaging to both senators and members of the House on the widespread effects of this funding freeze? And the other way that we had this asked is, when you talked about in your remarks about about local public housing, or just when you're talking to either individuals in your district or local agencies, school districts, nonprofits, whatever it is, about how they're being impacted by the funding freeze. What kinds of information are most helpful for you in terms of finding ways to push back on this or to be part of the larger narrative here?
Yeah, well, on that score, what's important, that's what I said, I need to get from all of you because you're on the ground. When you know best what happens when these programs are cut, there's cutbacks or so forth. You know what the consequences are. That's the kind of information that is critically important that we can get out. I view this as really. I look at really in terms of message, two pieces of this. One is cost of living. Keep in mind that Trump talked about the first day he was going to deal with the cost of living. He hasn't done anything about that yet. But like when I saw the video, I guess it was in Vanessa's video, there was a jar that had the money that when you do all the energy modernization, etc., that puts money in people's pockets, so forth. So cost of living is critical. And then the other piece of this is unchecked billionaires, because what the cuts are doing is they're being made in order that you can provide the tax cuts for the richest 1/10 of 1% of these folks. And pretty much all that is being, the appropriations pieces of all of this can be driven through, this kind of a prism, etc. And that's what, and the piece about the unchecked billionaires is that they are stealing the funds that have been intended for American families and businesses. That is what that is what this is, what this is all about. What part of the question didn't I answer for you, David? I can't remember here.
I think you pretty much covered it. Maybe what is the messaging that's most useful for?
Yeah, that is the message. It's a simple framework. I actually got it down to, let me just look. I've got so many. In a paperless society, I am really, okay, here we go. This is the message frame. The Trump administration is stealing from the middle class, working people, seniors and veterans, small businesses and farms, because that's the only way they can get the money they need to keep handing out billions in tax breaks and subsidies to their billionaire cronies. We've got to stop it and stand up for everyday Americans. And I can get that short paragraph out to you. That's the message.
Amen. We would love to be able to pass things along to folks who sign up for this call. So thank you. We'll look for to that. I think we have time for one more. So I'm going to package a few questions together.
Okay.
And one thing for you, which is we're getting a lot of questions right tonight about a lot of the specifics of information that you're securing. I know there's been questions about fact sheets and things like that. People are wondering what kinds of information you all have already collected that we can share out with folks. And so that's sort of one question. And I know, and I'll say out loud as part of that, all of us and all the groups on this call are doing a lot of the story collection ourselves, which is, the Congresswoman can talk about some of the state by state things that are going on, but it is incumbent on all of our groups to continue to collect these stories and share them directly with the press, local press, especially to make sure this is getting in the faces of members of Congress from where you live. So that's one question, is about what kinds of fact sheets and things exist already to help people have this information at their fingertips. And then the other question is, you talked about this a little bit in your remarks, but this March 14th deadline is coming up, and folks would like to know how we can help maximize your leverage in the run-up to that date.
Let me mention the stories first. One of the things that we're going to do on March 5th, I mean, this is in I think, a special order that we're going to do, and we've asked members to come forward with stories and also to have pictures, visual, so that if there are stories that we can get from all of you, that would be enormously helpful, because it's not only just a one-off. We need to be continually telling these stories, and we can get members, to do that through a variety of vehicles. Yes, I mean, look, some of the traditional stuff is no longer, people are listening to. You can go to the floor, you can do stuff, but it is getting stuff up on the various platforms, the social media platforms, that we can get done today. We have district by district green climate programs. We have energy rebates for household costs. We have employment cuts by DOGE that affect veterans. I mentioned, and we have material that went out on, this is land conservation with REAP and EQIP, etc. We've got that data by a district. We also have energy stuff that was sent out from Congresswoman Capter that we can get. And we are compiling these the same time. So we can send all of this to the organizing out on the call to be able to get to, get to you all, so that you can get to the people who are on the call. I'm more than happy to do that. And we're in the process of collecting stuff. We will have, with regard to education, if they cut Title I, that's 72,000 teachers nationwide. What does that mean for every district? They cut the special education. What does that mean? Pell Grants. We're getting information on Medicaid, by district. And so as we're amassing, what does it mean when you cut off the cancer research? And I think about Crystal and Vanessa and myself, cancer research, which saved my life, and I'm sure their lives as well. The last thing on March 14th, of thinking about, there needs to be pressure on, and what we ought to try to do is to get you the list of the Appropriations Committee members, particularly the Republicans here, that they need to come to a conclusion about getting these bills done and getting them done now. And not, we have some people talking about a year-long continuing resolution. Makes no sense at all. But that they have got to push folks have got to push their members on the Appropriations Committee to get the job done, to get these bills passed so we can have a 2025 budget in every area, whether it is education, labor, health, human services, energy, transportation, agriculture, the whole 9 yards. I think it is putting that pressure on individual members. And I say for the purposes, not everybody, we're targeting this. And who are we targeting? You're targeting the Appropriations Committee members, which is a much smaller universe than an entire caucus. So I'm trying to think of I don't know if you have the information about those 2025 appropriations bills at the moment of what they are. They didn't change from last year. There are serious cuts in these bills, which people need to know about so that you can push back with some of these appropriators and say, no, that won't fly. That won't fly. And quite frankly, that's information that we can get to you. I'll be happy to do that. We have to also, you have to have full year bills with that assurance, as I said early on, that you follow the law. The law says if money is appropriated, that you have to help us as congressional Democrats protect your interests across the country, and that money is going for intended purposes.
Well, amen to that. I think that's a great place to wrap this up. Ranking Member DeLauro, thank you so much for your time. We are all just so grateful to you for your leadership. Thank you for being an incredible climate champ. And we will be sure to share out with folks as much of the information you can get. There's a lot of this fact sheets available on the Appropriations Committee Democratic website. Has a lot of this information. We'll be sure to try to find ways to point people to that information. And rest assured, we're going to be pushing back on all these appropriations bills along the way.
Let's stay close. Let's be in touch, etc. as we go along. You have an amazing network. One of the things I think is if I could take a year off, I'd go out and try to organize the country. We need people on their feet every single day. They've got to hear from us. That is the most effective tool that we have at the moment. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you for what you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague Courtney Foley to talk about how folks can get involved and ways to take action here. So thank you so much, Congresswoman. And Courtney, let's turn it back over to you.
See you. Bye.
Thanks so much, Congresswoman, and thanks, David. Hi again, everyone. We're asking you to do two things tonight. First, call your member of Congress with our click to call feature. We're going to drop it in the chat. And then second, join us for a future training session next week, March 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Great training on advocacy. So on the click to call, you'll share your story of why climate funding is critical to you or your community and how you're impacted by the funding cuts. As folks know, calling your member of Congress is one of the most powerful things you can do to affect how members are going to vote on climate. And you can click the QR code that's on the screen right now, and that'll take you straight to the click to call. Once you submit the form, you'll receive an automated call and it'll have a short reminder of what you should say in the script to your member's office. And after that reminder, you'll be connected directly to the office. The script is going to say the EPA is the first line of defense protecting Americans everywhere from dangerous pollution that can cause cancer, asthma attacks, lung disease, and other health threats and climate change. Climate funding is critical to my community. Please protect funding for the EPA during this current budget fight. So really appreciate folks participating in the click to call. And again, you can scan the QR code and we're also dropping the link in the chat. And then the second item, we're excited to host an upcoming advocacy training with League of Conservation Voters and others, Green New Deal Network, Next Gen America, Chesapeake Climate Action. And that's going to be next week, March 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking about making calls, posting on social media, and doing in-district visits to your members of Congress. So if you're an organization, if you belong to an organization you want to co-sponsor, there's a form you can fill out that we'll drop in the chat. If you're an individual, you are who we're looking for. We hope you can join the call. It's going to be really impactful. So it's going to be a 60-minute training, and that'll really make sure that participants have the skills and confidence to advocate to their members of Congress with lawmakers and really make an impact. So hope folks can sign up for that. Now, I also wanted to talk about some additional resources on the funding freeze. If your organization, business, farm received a federal grant, do not assume that your members of Congress are aware of the award itself or even the work that you do in your community. So you have to show up and advocate for yourself. So you can reach out to your members. You can use our click to call. You can also request a meeting if you're a constituent. You can go to congress.gov to request that meeting. You can also ask for support, and that support can take a variety of forms, from an easy lift to more vocal, visible support. So members of Congress can send letters to agencies on your behalf. Local state officials can contact Congress and federal agencies on your behalf. A federal, state, or local elected official can post their support on social media, so you can tag them when you're trying to get their attention. And then you can also do a public event with any of these elected officials as well, or participate in an event that one of our organizations is putting on. And if you don't have a federal grant yourself, that's okay. You can reach out to Congress and still talk about, specifically how the funding freeze is negatively impacting your community. And again, we have the click to call set up, so you can get plugged in there. And just really keep showing up. The advocacy that you're all doing is so important, and really appreciate folks showing up here tonight. We will be sharing the Zoom recording, and we will be sharing some fact sheets, and just really appreciate everyone on the call and hope everyone has a great night. Appreciate you all.